was like. He told me about holidays, food, the tourism, and agriculture. For the holidays, one day they celebrate is restoration of the independent Czech state. It's always celebrated on January 1st, and it marks the date in 1933 that Czechoslovakia split into Czech Republic and Slovakia. Another Czech holiday is Struggle for Freedom and Democracy Day. This is celebrated on November 17th. It commemorates the day the Nazis storming the University of Prague following demonstrations against occupations of Czechoslovakia. Another one is the food. The basis of every Czech meal is usually meat and is always served with potatoes, rice, or traditional bread. One of the most popular dishes, and in many surrounding countries, is Czech cuisine. It's a soup with vegetables and meat and is usually served with beer. For tourism, one of the best places to go in the Czech Republic is Prague. It's known for its old-time square, Gothic churches, and colorful buildings. Prague gets 8 million visitors every year, and 7 million of them are foreign. The Czech Republic is in fact one of the major tourist destinations in Europe, receiving 20 million visitors yearly. For the agriculture, the principal crops of the Czech Republic is grain, like wheat and barley. It supports the Czech Republic's dozens of small breweries. In 1998, Kultivic's area accounted for 40% of the total land area. After Germany, the Czech Republic is Europe's largest producer of hops. Production in 1999 was 6,000 tons. Other important crops include oilseeds, sugar beets, potatoes, and apples. In conclusion, that was just a few facts about the holidays and food, tourism, agriculture on my dad's side of the heritage Czech.
So I asked my grandparents, where did I come from? Or where did our ancestors come from? They told me that around the 1800s, from the United Kingdom, there was this time of work and money because that was a small thing going around. So they decided to take a trip to the United States. They mostly focused on the eastern part and stayed there. Many of them joined the war, and others worked to get enough money and I am brain dead. I don't know what else to say.
Skin, milk white. My complexion. You would probably assume that I am obviously German and Scottish, English, but would it surprise you to know that I'm actually Native American? I talked to my mother, Tracy Coldiron, and according to her, I am actually related to the Blackfoot Native American tribe on my grandma's side. The Blackfoot tribe, according to, it was a history transcript from a college class, is actually a group of 3 sub-tribes. The sub-tribes are the Siksika, the Kinga, and the Piegan. They shared the same culture, and they fought the same enemies, but were independent from one another and had 3 different tribal leaders. They live in the northern Great Plains, which goes over 5 U.S. states, which would be, it's hard to on this map, Nebraska, Wyoming, sort of areas. There aren't actual states on this map. Okay, Nebraska, Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, and 2 Canadian provinces, being Alberta and Saskatchewan. which to this day, the Blackfeet Indian Reservation is actually still in Montana in the upper north portion. Today, I will be telling you some of the culture, religion, and ceremonies they used to do. And while I do not fully celebrate them, I still think they were very interesting to learn about, because I never really knew this sort of stuff, and it's not something that would be taught in normal history class. So first of all, their culture. The Blackfoot culture was very interesting in the fact that it actually revolved around the buffalo. The Blackfoot tribe did not care about art, pottery, basketry, or even agriculture. All they cared about was the buffalo. They would use the buffalo for everything, from eating it for food, using it for clothing, and making homes out of it for shelter. The way they lived was that wherever the buffalo goes, they followed. Before the 19th century, they were actually classified as one of the most aggressive and strongest military powers in the area that no other native tribe could compete against. So, if the buffalo moved, that was how they were able to keep with them. Next, as I said, the Blackfoot Indians did not have very many cultural importances. They didn't care about too much stuff, but they had very complex religious views. The Blackfoot did have one main god, being the sun. But they also believed that there are supernatural powers connected to nature. They believed that animals had supernatural powers, which they could give to people through dreams. The idea was that when you dream, an animal would give you a list of things you have to do or objects you have to collect. And once you get them, it will give you whatever the supernatural ability is. Now, what they did a lot between the three tribes was once you collected these, you could actually keep them as an idea and trade them as ideas to other tribes. And that was something they traded, was their supernatural abilities they got through animals. They also, though, believed that rivers and lakes had supernatural powers. They believed that there was the idea of underwater people, that there was more or less people living underwater. And they were so afraid of the idea of underwater people, they actually, to this day even, will not eat fish and do not like going across river or lakes in canoes. They're too scared of it. Finally, the Blackfoot tribe had ceremonies, and they took these very seriously, because it was one of the only times the tribes would get together. The main thing they did at these ceremonies were dances, with their most important one being the sun dance, a 4-day-long celebration of the sun god. One woman from one of the tribes would vow to put it on and set everything up and wear sacred clothes. They would then fast the entire time and dance to celebrate the god. Some would actually even pierce their own chest to show gratification to the sun god. So that was the Blackfoot tribe, from their culture, religion, and even ceremonies. While I myself do not practice these ideas, it's still nice to know the cultures I'm related to, and I hope you find it as interesting to learn about as I did.
So today I'm going to inform you all about the heritage on my mother's side of the family, and yeah. So Mona and Bill Brooks are my grandparents, and Mona, my grandmother, she was born in Newfoundland, Canada. Newfoundland is a province of Canada. Newfoundland is mixed up here. Her parents passed away when she was only 7, so she spent all of her teens in an orphanage with her 10 other siblings. They were all put into foster care. Her dad was a lumberjack in Newfoundland. So my grandpa Bill Brooks, he was born in Tawas, Michigan, but he has family all over the world, from Ireland to Great Britain. But for this speech, I wanted to focus on my grandmother's side and some interesting facts about my heritage, as well as some facts about Canadian Canada's industries, food, holidays, and their main tourist attractions. So my grandma told me her father, George Dalmont, was a lumberjack in Newfoundland. He worked countless hours out in the hardwoods, and the main trees that they cut down were Douglas fir and black spruce. And according to the forest industry of Newfoundland, most of the finished products they got sent to a paper mill, or they were used for siding and stuff like that for houses. So another huge industry for Newfoundland and Canada as well is offshore oil. And since 1979, 1.7 billion barrels of oil have been produced throughout Newfoundland. That's just Newfoundland, not even Canada. And Newfoundland's oil resources play a huge role in Canada's economy because they create jobs and bring new business in. And also another huge thing in my family anyways from my grandma is the Canadian food. Ever since I was little, Nanny would always make us, they're called toutons, but it's basically a donut, but it's just fried dough. And I just remember rolling the dough out with her when I was like 3-4 years old, and she still does it to this day. And then making her a huge breakfast and everything with the Canadian bacon, and yeah, that was good stuff. But Canada also has many different holidays. The two that my grandma still celebrates is Remembrance Day and Canada Day. Remembrance Day is on November 11th, and it marks the day when the Army stopped fighting in World War I. Remembrance Day is recognized by everyone in Canada. And another example of Canadian holidays is Canada Day. Canada Day is the birthday of Canada. It is basically like Canada's 4th of July. And the first Canada Day was 150 years ago on July 1st, 1867. But Canada also has many tourist attractions that bring people from all over the world to come and visit. And the two that I picked were the Niagara Falls and the Canadian Rockies. The Niagara Falls is located in Ontario, Canada. And Niagara Falls is the biggest waterfall in the world by the volume of the water siphoned out every day at an average of 750,000 gallons each second. The Canadian Rockies is the second tourist attraction I picked, and I thought it was kind of neat because they have 5 different parks within the Rockies, and they're all different heritage sites. And the parks are the names are Banff, Jasper, Yahoo, and Coot. So I just picked that because it went along with the topic of the speech. So, without Canadian or Canada's lumber industry or food or their holidays and its attractions, my family wouldn't be the same it is today. They all play a key role in my family, and it just goes to show us how much different countries have to offer, and whether it's land, their food culture, or their different holidays. We have celebrated them since I was just a little kid.
The English culture is an interesting culture to get knowledge about. My family practices many aspects that is associated with the English descent still today. When I first contacted my grandma, Patty Deloach, I was hoping that she would have had more information about Ireland, as that was one of her matches on her Ancestry DNA document. However, this is not the case, so we went to England. England is a very interesting country to learn and become more familiar about. I am here to inform you about England's culture through a personal interview that I did with my grandma on religion, holidays, food, and traditions. When first interviewing, I tried interviewing my parents, Justin and Amanda Rutt. However, they did not know much about their background. Therefore, I decided to call my grandma over the phone to see if she knew anything that could provide me assistance. During this phone call interview, my grandma mentioned that she actually did an ancestry DNA diagnostic. Since she did one of these, it allowed me to get credible information from her. She mentioned that England was one of the major results that she got. I got many different answers of my family's ancestry information, but I decided to go with England. England was the only high percentage that she got from both her mom and her dad's side of the family. Therefore, this seemed the most accurate and easiest to discuss since she had the most information about it. To start, my grandma actually talked about a particular tradition that her family did, which she mentioned that after every Christmas that they would celebrate, they would spend the day after Christmas to basically just play games and spend time as a family, as her dad would be working most of the time that she interacted with him and grew up with him. Mostly, she said that her siblings would be playing the games because her dad would be attending work. However, since her mom was a stay-at-home mom, she would be involved in these games after Christmas. Secondly, food was very basic in her lifetime. According to countries and their cultures, many people would eat food, vegetables, and small portions of fruits. When growing up, my grandma mentioned that her mom would always create meals that included potatoes, chicken, turkey, cabbage, carrots, and more. Specifically, she said her mom would make many roasts and soups. Oftentimes, they would eat the same meal for consecutive days because these are the resources that they had on hand majority of the time. Lastly, thirdly, holidays that they mostly celebrated was Christmas, Easter, and New Year's, which is very similar to us. However, in England, holiday that I personally do not celebrate is Good Friday. My grandma had told me that she still remembers when her family would celebrate this holiday. They would consume much more food than an average day and just spend time together on this particular holiday. Lastly, religion is something that my grandma is very passionate about. According to countries and their cultures, the major religious traditions were Christianity. This is something that my grandma had mentioned because they would attend church every Sunday as a family, as long as her brothers and her father weren't busy at work. She still attends church today because she has been doing it her whole life and simply because she still practices this belief herself. To conclude, England is a very interesting country to learn and become more familiar about. Overall, the English culture is a very basic culture and easy to follow. This culture brings many interests to me because I see so many things that my grandma grew up doing that she still does today.